Okay. No, I need you
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Ooh, oh, you say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I'm strong when I think I'm weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say I am yours.
Thanks, everyone. You guys can sit. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight to rejoice Billy's life and all the great accomplishments that man has done for all of us, I'm sure. I'll be your MC tonight. I'm Charles Rouleau. I'll be going through some of the family's notes and recordings and some of the things that they've wrote on behalf of Billy. And just so everyone's aware, the guest book out there, please don't miss signing that out. I'll introduce you to Colleen. She's going to start with Billy's eulogy.
Good evening and welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Colleen Millsap, and it's with great honor I will share with you my memories of William Shane Walker, or as most of us like to call him, Billy. Billy was born September 14th, 1978 in Burnaby, BC. He was predeceased by his parents, William Walker and Rosalind Slavin, and brother Bradley Walker. He leaves to mourn his life partner, Stacy Chison, his mother Kelly Joyner, his stepmother Laura, his sons Bradley, Gavin, and Liam, his daughters Cassidy and Emerson, brothers Dylan, Stephen, Michael, Jeff, sisters Amanda and Sabrina, stepchildren Danielle, Marissa, Jenna, and 7 grandchildren, and many extended family members. It's a huge, huge family, you guys. A lot of people couldn't be here today. The one person we're missing, and I know she's watching, is Kelly. And so I just want to acknowledge that she would have been here with us, but she took a slip and fall and is in our hospital here in Grand Prairie. So I'll carry on. So the Walkers lived in Burnaby for 9 years, and Billy's favorite thing was to play Little League baseball. At the age of 9, Billy and his family moved to Hazelton, BC. It was quite a change from big city life. Billy loved the outdoors, and soon it was camping, fishing, water skiing, rafting on the rivers that kept him busy. His brother Dylan was born when Billy was 10. Dylan was born with health issues. He had a colostomy as a child. This is when a side of Billy started to show up that few knew was there. His mom told me Billy was right in there at 12 and 13 years old, changing Dylan's colostomy and caring for his brother. This experience of loving and caring carried on through Billy's life. This is the time that our family got to know Billy and his family. I was with Chevron Canada and owned the Chevron store in Hazelton. So here's where our story began. Billy came in and he said, "I'd like to see the manager," to Arlene, one of my employees. And she called me on the intercom and she said, "Hey, there's a young kid here to see you, and his name is Billy Walker." I asked her what he wanted, and she said, "I don't know, but he's insistent on seeing you." I'd heard about Billy Walker, and I thought, this is odd. He's not one of my boys' pals. He was older than they were, and too young to yet work at my store. So I come out, and Billy Walker walked right up to me, stuck out his hand for a handshake, and said, "Hi, I'm Billy Walker, and I need a job." So back we went to my office, and I said, "Billy, how old are you?" He said, "I'm 13, ma'am." So I explained that he had to be 14 to legally work for me. Well, that didn't seem to fizz him. He continued to tell me why I should hire him, and it was quite a story. "Listen," he said, "I know how to stock a cooler." Well, of course, his folks owned the local pub. "I can sweep that lot out there. I can put chips on a shelf and I can count money. So by now, this kid had my interest up. So I said to him, listen, Mr. Billy Walker, one of your parents has to sign a government form, and you can only work 2 hours per day. So he took the forms and off he went. Well, to my surprise, the next day, here came Billy Walker. Forms in hand, and said, my dad signed them. When do I start? I said, well, I haven't hired you yet. Billy was quick, and he responded, but you're going to, right? So I said to him, well, meet me here Saturday morning at 7 a.m. And I thought to myself, well, this should end this. And the other thing I thought was, probably had forged his dad's signature. Next surprise, 7 a.m. Saturday morning, Billy was waiting for me at the store. So I thought, wow, this is quite a kid for his age. Off to the back we went, and I found a chevron shirt and a sweater and said, okay, off to the bathroom and put this on. He looked at me, and I could tell it wasn't cool. So I said to him, do you have a problem with this, Billy? And he hesitated, and then he looked at me and he said, nope. And in he went and put on the sweater. So of course, I took him outside and I said, you're going to sweep the lot and wash the pumps, as I did to all my new employees or my children, just to see if they had any ambition. Well, Mr. Billy surprised me again. In 2 hours, he swept the lot and washed it, and he had the pumps wiped down. Things went along this way for quite a while, and all was good. Then Billy decided to become an entrepreneur. My bookkeeper called me into the office one day and said, I think you better have a look at the tapes today. So I watched the tapes, and sure enough, there went Billy with a handful of chocolate bars under his hoodie out the door. Gail said to me, she said, are you going to fire him? I said, no. Just let's wait and see where this goes. Billy was what we call a grazer. I would sometimes find a half-eaten sub or a bag of chips behind the pop in the cooler. I would check his card to see if he had written anything down, and sure enough, there was nothing. My policy was you could charge what you wanted, but on payday, you had to pay your bill. So for the next couple of weeks, I watched the tapes, and sure enough, there would be Billy, chocolate bars, chips, sometimes a little pop, or whatever he could get under his hoodie or in his backpack, going out the door. I thought to myself, well, this is quite a kid. He's either hungry or he's up to something. But either way, I had to put a stop to it. So the next day, I took Billy into the office and I sat him down on a chair. And I sat on my desk with the video screens up behind my head. And I said, Billy, have you got anything to tell me? He said, no, I don't think so. So I turned my head and I looked at the video screens. And I said, Billy, are you sure you don't have anything to tell me? Well, those blue eyes were as big as saucers, and he was red as a beet, and tears started rolling down his face, and he blurted out, I've been stealing. So I thought about it for a minute, and then I said to him, well, we've got a couple of options. The first one is I can call the police. They can lock you up and send you to juvenile detention, and you won't see your family or anyone you know for a very long time. Or you can work for free until you've paid everything off. You've stolen. It's your decision. Well, by that time, the tears were really flying, and he was shaking, and he said, I don't want to go to jail. So I said to him, I guess you're picking option number 2. He looked at me with those big blue eyes and said, I will work. I promise I will. I said, okay, Bill, but you got to tell me a couple more things. Why are you stealing from me? I said to him, you got to tell me the truth. And Billy said, I've been selling them to make money. I got a side hustle going on. I had to turn my head because I was about ready to crack up and said to him, Okay, well, here's the deal, bud. There's no more lying, there's no more stealing, and if you're hungry, you use your charge account. Well, Billy worked harder than any kid I've ever seen, and to this day, to my knowledge, no matter how good or how bad things were, or what he was up to, did he ever lie to me again. He may have skirted the truth once in a while. Billy worked for me for quite a while, and he kind of became a household fixture at our place. He'd get mad at his mom and dad, and he'd come over, and he'd say, "I'm not going back," he would tell me, his tale of woe, which I usually thought was some shenanigan he had pulled off and was in trouble for, which I was right. I used to make him phone his mom and tell her where he was at, and occasionally he would stay the night. By morning, he was ready to go on back home. Billy was a good kid. He just needed a chance. So his next chance came when he went to work for Bruce, herding sheep. You're going to hear a poem today that'll tell that story. The next big chapter, and he also drove cab for Sally, who's with us today. The next big chapter of Billy's life, he became a father. And he had 3 beautiful sons. I remember when Bradley was born, he came through my door with a great big grin and he said, "Guess what? I had a boy." One boy became 3 boys. He was so proud. He learned his love of cooking at a very young age from his grandma, whom taught him to make bread and many other tasty treats, which I'm sure most of you have had. He loved to feed people. It was part of his love language. Bill learned at a young age how to drive truck. This became a huge passion for Billy. Truck driving took him to many places. Along the way, Billy would gather many friends whom he always turned into family. No matter who you were or where you came from, it just didn't matter. You were his family. He had a way about him of making the people he collected feel like they were his best friend. Some earned their titles of brother, many pops, and a few extra mothers along the way. In 2012, Billy was logging in Mackenzie, BC. This is where he met Crystal, and his next 2 pride and joys came, his daughters, Cassidy and Emerson. Billy had a rollover while working at Shillard Trucking, so Ken Adrian got him a job with Glenn Woods. And Glenn couldn't be with us today as there was an accident in the Pine Pass and he couldn't get by. He worked for Glenn for a couple of years. But Billy had such a restless soul and was always looking for a new adventure. So it was off to Dawson Creek. This is where we connected again. Billy went to work for Derek Loomis, who just happened to operate out of my yard. I was sitting at my desk looking out the window and I seen a truck coming in. Well, to my surprise, there was Billy. I called Derek and I asked him, "Do you have a guy working for you named Billy Walker?" Derek said to me, "Yes." "What did he do?" I said, Nothing for you to worry about. Could you send him to my office, please?" So I could see him coming across the yard, shoulders squared, ready for what reprimand was coming his way. He opened the door, he stood staring, and out of his mouth came, "Mother, you abandoned me." He picked me up and he gave me one of those big Billy Walker hugs, and he said, "I'm home." Billy took pride in his job, and his days off were spent at the farm, shining his truck and bringing me a dish of something he had cooked up. And again, there was that love language he bestowed on many of us he chose to make family. He worked for Derek for a year or so, and soon he was restless. He called Kenny and headed for Grand Prairie and went to work with Ken at Fluid Pro. I had moved to Sherwood Park, but was soon back in Grand Prairie. So true to form, I got the call. "Mother, I need you to come work with me." And we went to Energy Transport. it was here he took the role of becoming a manager. I said to him, Bill, if you're going to be a manager, you have to look the part, bud. Those hoodies and running shoes are not going to cut the grade. So off we went shopping. And at the end of the day, Bill squared up those shoulders and looked in the mirror and said, damn, I look good. What do you think? Once again, it took me back to that 13-year-old kid. He stayed at Energy for about a year. He was restless and it wasn't quite the right fit. So with a huff and a puff, and that's a gentle way of saying it, off he went. Well, this is when Billy finally found a company where he truly belonged. And guess what? Once again, the phone rang and he said, Mother, I need you to come work with me at Chats. So over I came. For Bill, Nancy and Orville became his family, and he finally found a home. He rose to the challenge and helped build Chats Trucking. He loved his job. And like I did, Nancy and Orville seen the potential in Billy. He was a diamond in the rough for Chats, but he got the job done. This is where he met the love of his life. Well, didn't start like that. The sparks flew. They were at a Seven Gens meeting with our dear Chuck. Now, Chuck could probably tell this story better than I will, but I'll give it a shot. Stacy was a dispatcher at Gibson's, so they had a meeting. At the end of the meeting, Stacy asked Chuck if she could ask a question. And her question was, we're a team, aren't we, Chuck? And Chuck said, you bet, and I've got to do the Stacy thing. We're one for all and all for one. We're a team. And that is Chuck. So, Stacy said, well, then you can imagine my surprise, Chuck, when a team player would not send out his trucks to, when a team player wouldn't send out his trucks when we were short of providers. Well, Chuck was immediately mad, and he wanted to know who this non-team player was. Chuck said, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Well, Billy was sitting right beside Chuck, with his face getting redder and redder, and then the meeting ended. Everyone was headed to Chats Trucking for a barbecue when Billy stopped Stacy in the parking lot. And Billy said, we need to talk. And Stacy said, you effing think so? And then kept walking. Well, that ended that meeting. The next meeting, things went a little bit smoother, but the sparks never stopped. They started talking, and the next thing we knew, Billy and Stacy were a thing. Well, he had now met his match from this day forward. They've never been apart. Bill Sr. passed away, and Billy felt the need to go back home to Hazelton to help his family out. So this time, with Stacy in tow, off they went. This was a whole new adventure. Stacy got to know a side of Bill that was a whole different guy. There was fencing and canning and picking berries and fishing and a whole lot of other things. Once they felt things were settled enough, it was back to Alberta once again. Billy tried numerous jobs, and he found his home at Prime Towing. Now, I could go on with these stories, but I better wrap it up here pretty soon. Well, maybe I'll talk a little more. Billy come home. He actually come to our office, at Ian's office, and he said, Mother, I need to come home for the winter. The trailer isn't winterproofed. And without a hesitation, I said, well, when are you moving in? October, he said. There's just one thing. I said, what's that? Well, Stacy talks a lot. I chuckled and I said, I think we'll be okay. Little did I know he brought me home a beautiful lady who I now consider my daughter. It was magical watching Stacy and Bill. Somehow she had taken that rough diamond and helped them to become a fine gem. I was very privileged to have a place in Bill's heart. Each and every one of you also share that space. Many others that aren't here also shared that space. We will miss Billy. We'll miss his hugs, his big blue eyes, sharing of his great cooking, and especially that smile. Oh boy, and the stories he did tell. Billy lived life large, so this is not goodbye. He will live on in our hearts and memories until we meet him on the other side.
Thanks, Colleen. That was Billy. And even the trucking stories. The families put together a slideshow for everyone to see some of the great pictures and times that Mr. Billy Walker had with everyone.
When I got the news today, I didn't know what to say, so I just hung up the phone. I took a walk to clear my head, and this is where the walk-in led. Can't believe you're really gone. Don't feel like going home, so I'm gonna sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear and drink a beer. Funny how the good ones go too soon, but the good Lord knows the reasons why, I guess. Sometimes a greater plan, it's kind of hard to understand. Right now it don't make sense. I can't make it all make sense, so I'm gonna sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear and drink a beer. So long, my friend, until we meet again. I'll remember you and all the times that we used to sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear and drink a beer. Drink a beer. Drink a beer.
May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you never fear those mountains in the distance. Never settle for the path of least resistance. Living might mean taking chances, but they're worth taking. Loving might be a mistake, but it's worth making. Don't let some helping heart leave you bitter. When you come close to selling out, reconsider. Give the heavens above more than just a passing glance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance.
It's a wheel in constant motion.
I hope you dance.
So long.
I hope you dance.
Wants to look back on their years and
I hope you dance.
years have gone.
I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance.
It's a wheel in constant motion.
I hope you dance.
So long.
I hope you dance.
Wants to look back on their years and
I hope you dance.
years have gone. Tell me who wants to look back on their years and wonder where those years have
Next up will be Amanda, Billy's sister, to read a poem.
To my dearest family, some things I'd like to say, but first of all, to let you know that I arrived okay. I'm writing this from heaven. Here I dwell with God above. Here there's no more tears or sadness. Here is just eternal love. Please do not be unhappy just because I'm out of sight. Remember that I'm with you every moon, morning, and night. That day I had to leave you when my life on earth was through, God picked me up and hugged me, and he said, I welcome you. It's good to have you back again. You were missed while you were gone. As for your dearest family, they'll be here later on. I need you here badly. You're part of my plan. There's so much that we have to do to help our mortal man. God gave me a list of things that he wished for me to do, and foremost on the list was to watch and care for you. And when you lie in bed at night, the day's chores put to fight, God and I are closest to you in the middle of the night. When you think of my life on earth and all those loving years, because you are only human, they are bound to bring you tears. But do not be afraid to cry. It does relieve the pain. Remember, there would be no flowers unless there was some rain. I wish that I could tell you all that God has planned, but if I were to tell you, you wouldn't understand. But one thing is for certain, through my life on earth is over, I'm closer to you now than I ever was before. There are many rocky roads ahead of you and many hills to climb, but together we can do it by taking one day at a time. It was always my philosophy, and I'd like for you too, that as you give into the world will give to you. If you can help somebody who's in sorrow, pain, then you can say to God at night, my day was not in vain. And now I am contented that my life has been worthwhile, knowing as I passed along the way, I made somebody smile. So if you meet somebody who is sad and feeling low, just lend a hand to pick him up as you're on your way to go. When you're walking down the street and you've got me on your mind, I'm walking in your footsteps, only half a step behind. And when it's time for you to go from that body to be free, remember you're not going, you're coming here to me.
Thank you, Amanda. That was beautiful. So, one of Billy's close friends recorded a poem for him as well, Bruce. If we could play that.
Billy the Kid. He came to live with us as a troubled young kid, over 6 foot tall and foot flat to the floor with everything he did. His dad was a local publican, biker, trucker, a hard act to follow. The kid was no longer the centre of his life, a tough pill to swallow. I kind of liked it when the kid tagged along. He was local and he was bloody strong. He helped us set up sheep camp and the ranch when it begun. He'd become part of the family in more ways than one. He'd ride the motorbike down to his grandma's and great-grandma too, the pioneering women of the homesteader who'd been around a season or two. The kitchen always smelled of fresh baked bread. They used bacon grease, he said. We'd wrestle, tussle and box around, but hard to defend yourself, held 6 foot off the ground. There came a time when I couldn't keep up. He became the lead dog, that crazy young pup. He took to driving trucks, just like his dad, hauling logs off mountains on roads that are bad. I was part of his wedding, ready, willing and able, the crazy 3, all cards laid on the table. His marriage produced 3 strapping sons. The Walker boy's legacy lives on and on. We hadn't spoken for a long time, and the last a hard blow, so the following years, only stories is all that I know. I'm sure he worked hard and gave the shirt off his back and left many a skid mark on many an old track. They're all together now, wherever they go. It's one hell of a party. That's what I know. And then there's Bill Jr.
Thank you, Bruce. So Billy Hawkins had a we had a little bit of a chat, Colleen and I, and there's some stories I'm sure some of you are aware of and some of you aren't, but there's a few stories I'd like to share for you, for you guys, from Billy. And one would definitely be his fishing story. So I already kind of hear some chuckles there. It was a stag party for him, and they were going to go out hunting. They were going for moose. And as you can see in some of Billy's pictures, he had the golf shirts on and the button-ups and shorts, flip-flops. Well, that's pretty much what this team looked like. They were going to Mexico, but they were going hunting. So along the way, they, I don't know which one it was that decided, probably Billy, they wanted to go fishing. Not a fishing rod in sight, no bait, no nothing. Yeah, no bait, no nothing, but they made do and they went to their fishing hole. Actually, I think it was at the county? Dease Lake, right. So somewhat of a dam type scenario, if you guys could picture it. There's fences and gates to allow the fish to move back and forth. And Billy was the first one to jump down there and close the gates up and wrangle up all the fish in the watering hole. And they were starting to toss trout up top. And these guys made do it again. Remember, they're wearing Hawaiian shirts and flip-flops. And then again, remember, they're supposed to go moose hunting. So that didn't work out well. But needless to say, they hunted something and they got some fish on their plates and they made do. So that was one of the many stories. There was another story, like you heard Colleen say, Billy liked cooking. He liked baking. He liked doing all those things. So on here I have Billy was a fantastic baker and cook. Agreed. There was one story where he'd always make these bread bowls, like you get from Tim Hortons, but chili in. So anyway, he made a bunch of those, and of course everyone loved them and ate the chili, and then obviously it was that good you could eat the bowl, not like Tim Hortons. But there was one where he said, and actually I got to be part of this as well, is he was a fantastic baker, and it wasn't just bread. For some of you may have known, he could bake a damn good cookie. All types of cookies. Anyway, Billy brought over a bunch of cookies to my place when I was sick and down and out, because you know who Billy was. He always had to make sure everyone was okay. So anyway, he brought over a batch of cookies and didn't think nothing of it. He was kind of snickered at me, but Billy always laughed. So of course, my wife, she chucks them in the freezer. So at that time, my 17-year-old and my wife, because my wife likes chocolate, and they were chocolate chip cookies, and they decided to partake in Billy's cookies. When I came home from... Well, there was a few missing, but when I came home from work, needless to say, if my wife and my son could crawl up walls, they were up there. So, and they didn't know why, but it was the most fantastic cookie they've ever eaten in their life. So anyway, so they asked me if I wanted one, and I said, well, you know what, when you guys are done doing what you're doing, still alive, I'll definitely try one. So, but yeah, no, he was always good for a laugh. And another story that was shared with me when Billy was a youngster, and like Colleen said, he was an entrepreneur at 13. I'm sure even younger, but he got to picking mushrooms. So for me, and even sitting with Colleen, we're picking mushrooms, but there's levels of mushrooms. There's grades of them. So let's go 1 to 3, 1 being best, 3 being worst. And of course, Billy made a career out of that summer of picking mushrooms and selling them to everyone. So he got his guys together, and of course, he didn't give his worker bees the number 1 mushroom. He sold 2 and 3, let them sell 2 and 3, and he sold 1 and started making a killing. And of course, they caught on, and it wasn't too funny. And I'm assuming that'd probably be around that time where Billy got the nickname Gypsy Kid. So, and it was all downhill or maybe uphill from there. So, no, it was good. And another story I had, this is when I met Billy, was he was working for Chats, and he was starting to manage for them, and kept calling me, and I was just introduced. I came from the field into the office and started working on building a, like Stacy and Colleen said, a truck team. So anyway, Billy was relentless. I was kind of trying to figure out things for the first week, hey, and trying to get my feet under me, and I kept getting this unknown call, and I wouldn't answer. Then his number started showing up, and I wouldn't answer, and then one day I finally did. Well, you know Billy. It was, it's like he'd known you for 100 years. So I'm thinking to myself, like, do I know this guy? Like, I think I need to meet him because I might have met him from somewhere. I don't know. I don't want to be that guy. So I said, okay, let's have a meeting, and we did. He finally broke through, and I think he had some help from Colleen, because he did go into that room and said, I can't get a hold of this guy. And she goes, well, keep trying, keep giving her, keep knocking on the door. Well, again, like I said, when I answered the phone, he was like, oh, hey. I'm just like, maybe I know this guy. Maybe I need to see him and see how things are going, right? So anyway, so I met Billy, and again, I didn't recognize him, by the way. I've never met him, but you know Billy, he's a hugger, so first thing he did, I go to put my hand, which I was a little nervous, by the way, because he's a giant, and he put out his hand, I put out my hand to shake it, and then of course he just grabs you and hugs you, like a bear hug, like he hasn't seen you in years, and let's catch up. So we caught up, and amazingly enough that day, we signed him on to 7 Gens, so he was good at what he did. So yeah, he definitely, yeah, we hugged it out, and ever since then we were close friends. It didn't take long. If we didn't see each other, it was easy for us to catch up. So I do have another poem, I have some stuff that Nancy Shannon has wrote for Billy. Nancy, would you? Okay. I'll hang out beside Nancy. Come on up. Ready? Okay. There you go. I'm going to use this. Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right.
Okay.
If I can make it without crying, I'll be good. I first met Bill when he came to work for us at Chats. That very first day, as soon as he entered the shop, he strode over to me with a coffee in one hand and shook my hand with the other as he introduced himself and added a couple one-liners. I remember thinking to myself, this fellow seems to be quite the character. Little did I know at that time how he would become part of our lives and such a huge part of our family. I could tell countless stories of Bill and his shenanigans, but as many of you know that truly know him may realize that even though we aren't in a church, this probably wouldn't be the place to repeat some of them. Speaking of churches, I would like to say that I've witnessed Bill inside a church, and a church did not burn down. One of our sons had a very special church event and invited some people that were special to him to come. Bill confirmed he would be coming. However, as it got closer to the time for church to start, he hadn't arrived yet. Just when we thought he wasn't going to make it in time, he came through the door with a grin from ear to ear, and much to my alarm, was carrying a Timmy's coffee as he walked up the aisle to find his seat. Needless to say, this was not the kind of church where it's acceptable practice to be drinking Timmy's in the pew. In the end, it didn't matter if he would have been carrying 10 coffees. What was important that he cared enough to show up and make our boy feel like he mattered. Throughout the years that Bill worked for us, he showed his caring to both Orville and myself and our children. He had a very strong work ethic and worked as hard as he could play. He showed great commitment to our company and our family. Chats wouldn't have been the same without him. Although at times he could have a voice like thunder when he had to put his foot down if the drivers got out of line, he always steered to having their well-being in heart. In the end, he always wanted all of them to do a job well done and to make it home safe. One Father's Day, the trucks were idle, and we had several drivers hanging out at our shop with no place to go or nothing to do. Bill came up with the plan that we should do a Father's Day barbecue down at the river. He suggested, since these men had to be away from their families and children on this day, that the family of Chats would celebrate them on Father's Day. In no time, we had a gang of kids, wives of the local drivers, along with the drivers away from their families, down at the river. What a time it was. Kids wading in the water and giggling, while the grown-ups visited and rehashed another work story. Bill at the barbecue cooking away, laughing and joking on a warm summer's Father's Day. As discussed earlier, Bill is a very good cook, and he was a wonderful cook and baker and often treated us at the shop with homemade meals and goodies. There was one kind of cookie that Bill used to make. It must have been a really special kind of cookie because it had ingredients that came from one of the drivers, Ken, from BC, would bring with him that came when he came on his days, back from his days off. Orville must have thought these cookies were very special too, because he would tuck the tin away safely in his dresser drawer where he could have them all and didn't have to worry about the kids getting into them. I had never had one of these special cookies up until the other night. I thought, in memory of Bill, I will try one of these cookies that everyone talks so highly about. Honestly, they didn't really taste that great, but gosh, I had the best sleep ever. Since Bill did most of the hiring for our company, he was the first to get to meet a new hire and would quickly notice and bring to our attention if a person was in need. Whether it be a meal, a ride around town to get needed supplies, a place to sleep, or an advance to help get them by, Bill didn't turn a blind eye to somebody in need. He said to me once, "If you've been there, you know what it's like." Bill could sometimes say things that weren't the most appropriate way to say the least, but there was times I would cringe and think, oh my word. I used to joke that we needed a waiver that would excuse Chats from any responsibility for what came out of Bill's mouth. I don't think I can think of even one of his one-liners, sayings, or jokes that I would dare repeat. One day I overheard him talking on the phone with a customer. As he ended the call with one of his favorite inappropriate one-liners, I said, "Oh my gosh, Bill, you can't say that," and nervously laughed. He just looked at me and chuckled, and with his usual mischievous grin, replied, "You have to remember, if you can make them laugh, they will remember you."
Thanks, Nancy. That was beautiful. So I have a few more stories, if you can imagine. So Billy had a way of just loving everybody, as we can all imagine. He had a way of finding the right moms. And I actually got to witness some of that. But, you know, he had the gift of love. He had a unique talent of I'm messing up here. Basically what I'm saying is he had the talent to be adopted without even the people that were adopting him to know. That's what I'm trying to spit out. But at the end of the day, he's just truly exceptional, and I got to witness a few things. I have one on here, another story of Colleen mentioned the hoodie, which was good because he was coming to meetings in hoodies, and it was nice that he was starting to wear a button up. And he started wearing button-ups and golf shirts, and I remember one day, I think you were at the meeting, I had a pink golf shirt on. So anyway, he started making, you know, Billy, poke at you a little bit, and I said, well, whatever, try it, and I said, it'll bring out those beautiful blue eyes of yours. And of course, he had his one-liners. Anyway, so he started wearing pink shirts, but he called them salmon, so it was different when you call it salmon, I guess, but anyway, today I wore Billy's pink shirt here today because I know he's laughing at me right now because it's truly pink. There's not a lot of salmon in it, so I know he's gonna be busting my chops, but I did that for him. So going back to a hugger, you know, I was talking with Colleen, and I kind of figured, because we always talk about Billy, he's larger than life. I think why Billy was as big as he was, and as strong as he was, because when folks like myself and others needed that hug or needed to be picked up, he had that strength to pick you up and make you strong again. That's definitely something I'll be missing from that man, and it's, I know you wouldn't want to hear that, but I think that's why that man was so big and strong, because he just picked things up when they were down and needed to shine that bright a little lighter. So I'll go over to the Joker. So I was just recently looking at some of the pictures there, and Colleen got to shared with me the pumpkin pictures. So that was on a whim, by the way. That wasn't planned. It was just, let's go carve pumpkins, put them on our heads, and take pictures everywhere. And when I mean everywhere, everywhere. In people's yards, at the Heritage Place, in stores. Stacy's just tagging along, having fun, and doing her thing. Which leads me into Stacy. You know, Stace, the best way I can describe your guys' relationship and yourself is, and especially you, the best way I can describe what you did for Billy is you were his Swiss Army knife. Okay? You were an amazing spouse, a best friend, a mother, a sister, a work partner. And I mean, the list probably goes on. But you were truly his rock. And you were. You made him want to be a better man. And I seen that in him. And thank you for giving him that true feeling and showing him what true love looks like. Because he really, really just thought the world of you. And like Billy would say, everything in life has a purpose and path. I believe personally that Billy's path was to shed light when our paths got dark. And I'm going to miss that guy. That's all I have on my list. Is there anything else, Colleen, you'd like to share? Or?
So, you're hearing this guy tell you that, and Chuck was a complete stranger. And I'm sure that we were all strangers to Billy at one time. All except his family. You know, Billy's capacity to love was bigger than most people's. Billy's capacity to take you in his arms and say, it's gonna be okay. He did it more than most people. When Chuck says he picked you up when you were down, boy, did he ever. And you know, to his family, you were all very blessed. We got part of that. You have it all. He made us all special in one way or another, and for the rest of our lives. I'm sure we'll all feel a little bit special, just a little bit more special because of Bill Walker. When he took you on, when he took on Ian, Kenny was like a dad to him, Billy Hawkins was like a dad to him, Peter was his great friend, and Orville Shannon stepped up as a dad. You know, Ian was his brother, Chuck was his brother. When you meet all these guys and all these young people, and I can't tell you how many there is, and Billy had just come along with a new person, and he'd say, hey, this is my brother. I think, okay. Don't know where that brother come from, but oh well. It truly was. Billy made everybody special. I hope today that we've done Billy justice, and I hope that you'll all share with us. We're going to shut things down now, and we'd like you all to stay. And we're going to have coffee and some snacks and share with us.
Stories.
Absolutely.
Do you?
Last night I dreamed you were back again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So we have one more reading from the family. So just 1 second.
I'm going to try to make it through this. So, hi. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Crystal. I have 2 amazing daughters with Bill. He knows how much I dislike public speaking, so I'm sure he's smirking right now, watching me up here. But for him and the girls, I'm going to try and make it through this. When I first met Bill, it was the summer of 2012, and he was working as a logger and staying at the camp I worked at as a baker. He nicknamed me the Cookie Wrapper, a name that stuck with everyone because almost every time I saw him, that's what I was doing. It was there, too, that I met Ken Adrian, who would become one of Bill's good friends. He was a no-nonsense, no-bullshit kind of guy, and Bill highly respected him for that. One day, there was an older man struggling to change his radiator in the parking lot of the camp, and Bill jumped right in and did all the work for him. This man was truly grateful. That's the kind of Bill was. He always wanted to help. Bill was very proud of all of his years in the logging community, where he was well respected. He made many strong connections, one in particular with Glenn Woods, the owner of Slewfoot Trucking. Those boys would fight like brothers, but you knew it was all out of love and a mutual respect. Bill always took initiative wherever he worked and had a very strong work ethic, always looking for ways to make things work better. Keeping his trucks ridiculously clean, he had towels on the floor mats even, and would take his muddy boots off because God forbid the floor mat got a speck of mud on it. He didn't want to drive truck anymore, so he got into sales and dispatch and management in Grand Prairie, which he flourished at. I remember how proud he was of what he had accomplished. He was so good at talking to people. He had a wit and a charm about him. This was around the time that he met Ian Warham, another friend that would become like a brother to him. He was definitely proud of his role at Chat's Trucking. Orville, Nancy, and their kids became like a family to him, and he worked as hard as he could to build that company up. It was like he had finally found his calling. Bill made the best homemade bread, a recipe he learned and made with his grandma. His lasagna and chocolate chip cookies were also the most amazing you'd ever eaten. He loved being in the kitchen, and you could tell because there was always a swath of destruction everywhere. He also loved to barbecue big feasts for everyone. Bill was always someone you knew you could count on. If you were hard up for a place to stay, some food, a few bucks, anything, you knew you could always count on him to have your back, and you would never go hungry for sure. Anyone that has been to any of Bill's houses knows the picture with the eyes and mouth with teeth. He loved that picture so much. Always wanted it hung somewhere everyone would see it. I remember Emerson being a little terrified of that picture, which I can't say I blame her. Bill hardly said goodbyes on the phone. He would just hang up on when the conversation was finished. I'm not sure why exactly, but anyone that's been on the phone with him, I'm sure, has experienced this. Bill taught me how to haggle for hotel rooms, furniture, jewelry stores, even got me $20 off a phone case at Visions once. I was shocked. He used to joke and take his glasses off for a second and say that was his secret weapon, his beautiful blue eyes, which I'm sure everyone can agree. I asked the girls what their favorite memory of their dad is. Cassidy said going to work with him. She loved having the one-on-one time with him. I think the Costco-sized bag of dinosaur gummies he always had in the cupboard of his desk always helped. She always had a great day, though. Emerson's favorite memory surprised me. It is getting her ears pierced, which was very traumatic for her, and she cried and was so upset when she got them done. He comforted her, so I think that was what her favorite part was. Cassidy used to sit with him and watch TV. Some of the shows might have not been very appropriate, like Gangster, etc., which I realized as we were getting pulled over for Bill speeding one day and Cassidy yelled, "Go, Daddy," to get away from the police. We had to explain that, no, you have to stop. Emerson is like a mini-me of him. She copied everything he did. She's also got his stubbornness, his wit, his charm, his eyes. I've got my hands full raising a little Billy. I remember one other time we were driving to Prince Rupert. Cassidy was about 6 months old, and there was a truck broke down in the middle of nowhere with two guys standing there, and Bill wanted to stop and help them. I was like, are you out of your mind? But that was who he was, always wanting to help wherever he could. He always liked to get Cassidy and Emerson matching dresses and take them to get their hair styled for pictures or special events. So today that was what we did, like he would have wanted. Stacy and I decided to let them pick out their dresses and hairstyles, and they chose beautiful blue dresses because that was his favorite color. He also bought them earrings with their birthstones in them when they were born, and for the first time they are wearing them tonight. I never expected to have to say goodbye to you so soon in life. This news was so beyond devastating to hear. You were supposed to grow old with Stacy. You were supposed to be here to walk your daughters down the aisle. It's so hard to believe that any of this is real. The fact that I have to watch our girls say goodbye to you at such a young age isn't fair. I wish you had more years. I can't thank you enough for giving me two beautiful daughters. For me, you will live on through them. I know you will be watching over them. So now I say my final goodbye to you, Wild Bill, 44 forever. And to Stacy, I am so heartbroken for you. You've weighed heavily on my mind since I heard the news. I'm so unbelievably sorry for your enormous loss. Bill was a great man to you, and you made his last years full of love, and I want to thank you for that, as it brings me peace knowing that. This life isn't fair to take him from you like this. I know your daughters will take great care of you. To all the moms, Jennifer, and the boys, I'm also very sorry for your loss. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to say anything?
So he changed his name. It wasn't Wild Bill anymore, it was Mild Bill.
Mild. I feel like he was a hot wing, not a mild wing. No. Oh. She'll tell you how she eyeballs right back. What? Come up on, come on up here.
So I don't really eat cookies like that. I like other cookies. So we went to Glenn Wood's house last Christmas, 2 years ago, and Glenn wasn't feeling well, and Billy said, I'll make you some really good cookies. How strong you want them? How strong can you make them? He said, trust me, they'll be good. So Billy made these cookies, and now we have all of Glenn's family coming for dinner, so I have to make 2 turkeys, and I'm doing the cooking for a change. And so I have one dressed and stuffed and ready to go, and the other one's almost done, and the boys decided, let's try a cookie. So Glenn ate one, and about an hour later, I said, how are they? He said, okay. I said, well, I'll have a piece of one. Yeah, I didn't finish dinner. I went upstairs. He goes, honey, maybe you need to lie down. I said, you think? So I went to lay down, and I was laying there, and I heard, Stace, and I'm like, yeah, there was nobody there. So I come back down a little bit later, and I thought I looked good after I almost killed myself in the shower. And he looked at me and goes, I think you need to go back and lay down. I said, okay, yeah, dinner was ruined. He forgot to stuff the other turkey, and I got the blame. But yeah, don't ever eat his cookies if you ever, or if they're in your freezer, leave them, because you don't know what's in them. But, you know, guys, I just have to say, he really loved every one of you, and he was so proud of his children. And we always looked at your pictures, and he really made everybody his family. And we're gonna miss him terribly. I can't believe this is real. But all I know is I had the best years of my life with that man. And he will always be in my heart. And we'll all stay together. Be strong.
Maybe that's the way we should finish the day, guys, with a group hug.
Fair enough. Me first? Okay, and so like Colleen said, there's refreshments, hang out, visit, tell some stories. I know there's little ears, so try to keep it PG. There was a bunch of swear words in here, but Colleen proofread it. She's like, no. Okay, no one-liners. But anyway, there's refreshments and everything, so you guys aren't getting kicked out. So, I think we're on.
Last night I dreamed you were back.
No, that's it. I love it.
Larger than life again, holding me tight again. Placing those same kisses on my brow.
Come on. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you did. Absolutely. I wouldn't have came up with that was
Do you know how much
you wrote that well.
missing? No, you don't. But I've been